Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Careers Talks, where I chat with professionals about their daily job responsibilities, their career paths and how they manage to land their jobs. In this video I sit with Karim. Karim is currently a consultant at BCG in London, and before that he worked across different firms including FTI and Strategy and. In this video, Karim will provide us with a detailed definition of what is management consulting, what do consultants do, and he provides us with a detailed breakdown of the different consulting firms in the industry and their offerings. I hope you'll find this video insightful. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. And you work as a management consultant, and I think it would be useful at this point in the podcast is to define what is management consulting. I know it's tough to put a definition to it, but
yeah, I think some people say consultant, and that is like obviously very broad. Like you could be a consultant in medicine, which is clearly not what I do. But if we try to narrow down what this conversation is going to be about and what we mean by consulting or management consulting, I would say if you think about the landscape of consulting in a classic management consultant fashion, if you think of a matrix, let's say, you've got two dimensions, right? I think that's really helpful to define what the industry looks like. You've got the sector or industry horizontals, let's call them. So you've got the likes of consumer goods, aerospace, healthcare, etc. And then you've got the functional verticals, let's call them. So you've got, for example, again, different people could cut these differently, but at a high level, you could say there's strategy consulting, there's operations and implementation consulting, there's technology and digital consulting. And then you could say there's a list of others which are more niche or maybe not where my expertise is, and therefore we probably won't touch on them a lot in this discussion. That could include things like restructuring advisories or working with banks on restructuring debt for firms. Like it could be very much finance or corporate finance focused. But yeah, at a high level, I would say strategy, operations, tech, and digital, like these three are the ones, let's say, that we will focus on. Yeah.
I really like how you structured your answer. It shows that you're a management consultant. So it does make sense how you, let's say, segmented the different industries. Can we touch on the firms? So who does what when it comes to this matrix, basically?
Yeah, so I think the matrix is helpful because obviously the firms within the management consulting space try to target different pieces of this matrix. Some firms try to do, again, if you think of all the intersections or the boxes, some firms try to tick all boxes, the likes of the big four companies, right? So they try to have, or they do work actually across industries, ranging from public to private sector, and within private, anything and everything you can think of. And then they try to do also all functional expertise. So big four firms, for example, have been investing in their strategy consulting arms. So PwC has strategy and EY has Parthenon. So they try to address that vertical, the functional vertical of strategy consulting. They do operations consulting, obviously. That's like their bread and butter, supply chain transformations, etc. And they also do technology consulting. So that's, I guess, one type of firms. You could argue that also some top tier or large scale strategy consulting firms try to do that as well.
So the likes of BCG, McKinsey, Bain.
Yeah, exactly. They try to do that as well. Obviously, big four versus these top tier strategy firms versus others, while they might be trying to address all boxes, they are known in the industry for certain types of projects more than others. They tend to have spikes in different functional expertise and different industry expertise.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, strategy consulting firms, again, they address the whole matrix in a way. but they're really well known for their excellent expertise in the strategy vertical. So when you think strategy consulting firms or strategy consulting jobs, the first thing that comes to mind, I guess, is these firms. And then you've got firms that try to tick certain but not all boxes. So you might have, or certain verticals or certain horizontals. So you might have actually a strategy consulting firm.
So that's different from Big Four and different from the strategy ones. I guess now you're touching on a third category, let's say.
Yeah, the ones that, and that doesn't mean that the Big Four
don't
and
do
the
that.
Strategy consulting firms are in the same bucket. They're different, but I think their scale, at least, allows them to address almost all boxes. But then you've got companies that have a smaller scale, and therefore they specialize in horizontals or verticals. So you might have a firm that specializes only in chemicals industry or just in aerospace. Or you might have a company that is just specialized in pricing, which is a functional expertise. Or they're just
so all their projects would be on pricing.
Yeah, they're known to be experts in pricing. Others are known to be procurement and supply chain experts. So they just focus on.
There's also marketing, right? Like marketing. So you can, a lot of different functions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is how the different firms are. For the purposes of this, I guess, just to help the audience understand which firms we're referring to across the podcast, I guess we could say strategy consulting firms, MBBs, McKinsey, Bain, BCG. Their scale allows them to do
touch on different
more than other strategy consulting firms, which are, I mean, in the industry sometimes they're called tier 2, but that's just a subjective way of how some people segment companies. But that is a second category, let's say. And then you've got the Big Four, the likes of the Big Fours, and then you've got the functional experts and then the industry experts.
Yeah, no, that's I think a well-defined way to explain the different, or the landscape of consulting companies. I think what would be interesting to touch on a bit is, I'm a management consultant. What are the main components of my job? Like, what do you do, whether it's presentations plus a bit of deep thinking in terms of strategy? I know it depends on the project, like the percentages differ, but if we can narrow it down to these are the main tasks of the management consultant. I don't do coding, for example, just like the main bucket.
Some do.
Correct.
I mean, it's really hard to find, like, because we're talking about such a big industry landscape, it's hard to say that management consultants don't do X. I mean, obviously there are examples, but like, I'm sure some and many do coding for certain instances. Like, that's definitely, I've seen that. But yeah, I mean, the main components, again, just for context, I've never done tech or digital consulting, so probably my answer is less focused on that.
More on the strategy.
I've done more strategy and some operations. And typically what tends to happen in these projects is, obviously, again, the job differs by the level and the seniority. So what the partner is doing is different to what the delivery team is doing. Right? So the partner is focused on sales, which is obviously they do contribute to the team and the strategy, and they give insight and so on. But the focus of their job is slightly different, which is they're focused on actually generating these projects, targeting clients, building relationships, etc. But for the purposes of our audience, which is probably more junior, the job is, again, differs a lot by where you are in this matrix and on the type of project, but there are common themes. One is obviously understanding the context with the client. So there's a lot of client interaction, which goes from start to finish in the project. Some projects you're in front of the client every day. Others, maybe you have weekly touch points and everything in between. But there is client interaction to define the problem, to define the approach with them and advise them on the approach, and then to maybe run workshops, do interviews, gather data from them. So the different client stakeholders help you in different ways, but that is one key theme. So if you're someone that likes dealing with clients, dealing with senior stakeholders, especially in consulting, strategy consulting firms, you deal with really senior C-suite executives. That is one component. In addition to the client management component, obviously there's the problem solving, and that could entail different tools, right? Like you could be working on PowerPoint, on Microsoft Excel, you could be doing some Python or Ultrix, and the list goes on. But that quantitative problem solving is key. Obviously differs by project. Some projects don't have that much quantitative problem solvings. They're more about qualitative. Some have both. It differs. So that's another component. So you might be building a model on Excel and then taking the insights and presenting them in a clear way on a PowerPoint deck, for example. So that's like the bread and butter. PowerPoint, Excel you use a lot. Besides that, there's obviously teamwork. So you're working in a team, both the direct team, but also sourcing experts, bringing their insights through expert interviews. So that is another component, the teaming and the different layers of teaming, the direct team, the broader team, which could include the working team from the client side, but also the broader landscape of involving internal experts within your company, but also external experts. So without going into the details of each project, I think this is a good summary of the common themes across projects and what you tend to do.